Well, good morning, podcast community. This is PodcastPete, and in the studio we got a special lady. We usually put we're usually on the senior living podcast, but why are we on Technology Matters? Well, you're going to hear why we're on Technology Matters because it does matter, and it matters to our seniors. So, Christian, tell our viewers who you are, what you do, and who you serve.
Well, good morning. Hello, my name is Chrisian Ross. I am the Chief Happiness Officer at Happy Talks, and we provide social phone calls for older adults. So our whole entire goal is to serve not only adult children, but to serve seniors so that they feel connected because we understand that connection equals better health.
Wow, that is magical because we experience that. When you hit the senior ranks, you know what you're talking about. I mean, not you, but we do. So when I met you at the expo, actually the young lady beside me said, "You got to meet that lady." And I said, "Oh, really? Why?" And she goes, "Just meet her." And so when you told me the concept, I was going, wow. And I picked up, I think, 52 cards that day. Not that I keep track, but I do. And you were the number one card. You were the first person I called and the first person I wanted to have on our podcast. So how did you come up with this? What was the backstory that got you doing what you're doing?
Well, my background is real estate. I've been in real estate for almost 20 years now. It's weird to say, time flies.
Mm-hmm.
And in that, I've just noticed in the past 5 to 7 years, families are dealing with so many more things. So not only are they dealing, a lot of times the adult children are dealing with their kids, they're going to HOA meetings, they have their jobs, and then they're also responsible for the care of an aging parent. And a lot of times that can be, just check-ins, or it can be something, greater as far as care that's needed and managing that. And I saw that and I was just like, I can make a difference here. Because when I first come into a home, it would be like, "Oh, hi, this is Christian." Then they come out, they find out I'm coming to sell it. And then it's, "Oh, I don't like Christian." So I had to really build another relationship with that person, let them understand that I am a trusted resource and that I would be there for them through this transition. And seeing those transitions over and over again, as well as family experience, I was like, I have to do something, and I know I can make a difference. Connection has been my entire background.
Well, I can tell when I first met you that was a skill set you had. What about, everybody has ideas.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we have ideas all the time. They're flowing in there, but ideas and actually taking action and getting the ideas to market. Give our viewers an idea. So you have this idea, how long ago, and just a tiny bit of that process of having it today where you're actually making a difference and an impact.
So Happy Talk started in 2021.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were coming, I would say, Atlanta was a different market. We were open during COVID. So yes, we were looking at everything that was going on across the country and things were happening here, but it was much different than other markets and other cities where everything was just locked down. So for me, it was really, where can I go to help me explore this idea? And Atlanta Tech Village has what's called a pre-accelerator. So a lot of accelerators are meant to accelerate your business. Well, I didn't have a business. So the pre-accelerator helped me identify who my customer was, what questions I should be asking, what books I should be reading, what rooms I should be in. And I started that. That was around 3 to 4 months. And I really formed my business under that. And I do have a background. I did have a tech exit in 2019. So I was familiar with managing engineers and what that looked like. But I had a team and I also had funding when that one started. This was quite different. This was my baby. This was what I was doing. So I knew I had to be very lean with capital and very lean with resources and see how I could make an impact as soon as possible and with as little money as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard indirectly stories about the Tech Village and the accelerator. Nobody personally. What do you think by getting in that environment? How did it benefit you? Obviously, it did, because That's a pretty aggressive start to birthing, a business. Help our viewers understand why that would make a difference in really helping you get your company to market.
It really helped because you're with people who have done it before. And
Mhm.
not only you're with people who've done it before, you are with people who have coached people who have done it before, or they've been on their teams. So everyone they brought in had so much experience. So when we're learning about partnerships, so we're learning about how do you do customer discovery and how do you do it efficiently, and understanding that customer discovery isn't a one-time thing. It's an ongoing thing in your business. Who's your customer? How can you serve them better? We just had so many amazing people come into our room we were in there probably 2 to 3 days a week. And then you had your homework that you had to do. So you were really always moving the needle forward with accountability too.
Mhm. What would you say, like when you mention room, is that like a group of people that have a common interest in a specific technology or business?
So these were all entrepreneurs. There were 8 of us that
Mhm.
had different companies. So we were all in different sectors, from logistics to my company in what they call age tech. We had just a really dynamic group, retail, e-commerce, but the whole goal was that we wanted to build a business and see if it would be viable.
Hmm. Now, of those 8 people, do you stay in touch with them?
I do. I actually messaged with half of them on Friday.
Wow, that's so good. I mean, I want our viewers to know, there's a community behind everything.
Behind everything.
Yes.
It's so important. And that's why too, when I realized I wanted to build the business, I knew the first place I was going to go back to was Atlanta Tech Village.
Mhm.
And I knew that they were so supportive in everything I did before, that's where I wanted to go. And I know there was always someone I could talk to. And that's actually where I found my technology partner to help me build the tech behind Happy
Mhm.
Talks.
So take our viewers through the engagement with our seniors. Like,
Mhm.
what is it? How does it work?
So the great thing is you can have a cell phone. Wait a minute,
Mhm.
there's the phone. You can have a cell phone, you can have a rotary phone, doesn't matter what phone that you have.
Mhm.
There's no apps to download. We want to meet people where they are, where they're comfortable. So we provide these calls 1, 2, 3 times a week, and we do have custom plans. So we have one person who we've talked to actually for the past over 600 days in a row, every
Mhm.
single day.
Hmm.
But the whole goal is, how do we create that connection and help them feel seen, help them feel heard, and be a support to not only them, but to their family.
Mhm.
And so when we call, after each call, and just want to make one thing very clear,
Mhm.
privacy and security is paramount to us.
Mhm.
And so our buddies who are our conversationalists who make the calls, they're background checked, they're trained. We have a proprietary EQ assessment to make sure that they are just,
Hmm.
emotionally well.
Yes.
And when they make the calls, they never see that loved one's information. They never see the senior's information. So
Mhm.
all they know is, I'm calling Paul in Ohio. That's all they know. And
Mhm.
so, of course, they build a rapport, they start talking. And after each call, if the senior has allowed it, they've given permission, then we provide high level text message notes to their loved one. They
Mhm.
also sit in our platform so the loved one can see all of the notes from however long.
Really? Oh my gosh. The under, our adult children, as we no, yeah, I get this mixed up. Yeah, adult
Adult children.
children with our aging parents are busy. They're
Yes.
busy building their careers,
Yes.
but mom and dad are changing. I mean, they're getting older. Their needs are changing drastically sometimes, and if you're not dialed in to how those changes happen and
Mhm.
not aware of it, I mean, the safety of their mom and dad is jeopardized because the emotional connection with whoever they have is so critical. And we're losing people as you get older. It's just a fact of
Yes.
life. So
Mhm.
you might lose a friend or a loved one. And now what are you doing? So when people hear what you're doing, what's the kind of reaction of the people when like a senior hears it, or a um, kid,
That adult child.
adult child,
Yeah,
yeah,
I got you.
yeah. What do they say? Like, I mean, what's the reaction?
So the interesting thing is the senior is usually, I feel like, a little defensive. I would say about 75% of defensive and say, I'm not lonely. And I'm like, hey, I'm just letting you know about a service. I'm not saying you're lonely.
Hmm.
Just letting you know about a service that's out here. The
Hmm.
adult child is like, wait a minute, what do you mean social calls? So I think because it is something that a lot of times there have been statewide organizations that have what they call as, what are those calls that they call them? I can't remember the name, but there's a certain amount of calls that there's a name that they call them.
Yeah.
But the whole point is that they usually haven't heard of it. So it's something new. But
Hmm.
we're like, the reality is when you look at the stats, if you are experiencing loneliness or social isolation, you have a 50% higher chance of early onset dementia.
Yep.
You have a higher chance of stroke, higher chance of so many different health challenges.
Hmm.
And phone calls can make a difference.
Yes.
Like just talking, letting someone hear you. And I'll never forget. Not never forget. This happened the other day. I was at the grocery store and I was talking to this young lady, and she was probably late 40s. And we were talking, and she said something. I can't remember what she said, but I said, well, did you go to the doctor? And she said, I did. So she starts telling me the story, and I'm asking her questions.
Hmm.
And at the end, she said, thanks for listening. And I think that's what our whole goal is. I said, that is
Yes.
literally what I want people to feel, is someone listened to me.
Yep.
And we just want to make people feel seen and heard. And you can have a million friends, you can have everything, but the reality is you can be around a lot of people and still feel alone.
Yes, totally,
Still feel alone.
totally. I had a person that actually lives here, and one night we talked for 3 hours.
Wow.
I mean, it's like I haven't talked to my brother in 3 hours, and in like a combination of calls, but they're
Yeah.
usually 10, 15 minutes. But when you have certain things that you got to share, I mean, it's like you said, it's that connection and being heard.
Yes.
There's a lady that Martina and I know her, Crystal. She did a conference. We talked an hour yesterday,
Wow.
it's just about how things went, and the whole idea is to have that engagement. It's not just hello, how you doing?
Right.
It's a deeper connection that I think we all crave. I mean, no matter what age.
We do. It doesn't matter. And I think too, when you look at Vivek Murphy, he's the Surgeon General. He released a report last year on loneliness. And the reality is it is all segments of the population now. I mean, especially our teens. God bless them. You could not pay me to be a teenager or in my 20s right now. Like,
totally
couldn't pay me. But I love the fact that he has been very, very vocal about this is a national emergency. Like we crave it. And even the CDC says there's the social determinants of health, SDOH, social being that main word.
Yes. Yeah. I personally can understand. I had a digital marketing business before I had a stroke, and I have not had TV, social. I probably haven't been on social in 2 years, and I don't have connection to TV because there's some other reasons. But what I realized, how important it is to use the phone to talk, not surf, not scroll, because the scrolling, as I was explained by a person, it puts your mind in a judgment every single scroll. Like you're constantly judging what you're seeing versus talking and engaging like the phone was meant to be. This was actually invented to talk,
Exactly.
and happy talk at that. But we've gotten so away from that we're texting, or we think we're on social media to socialize, but we're really not, because we're disconnected. Maybe you like something, maybe a comment, but you got to get back to talking. So what I mean, when that lady, and I don't, I know I could probably think back who was recommended. So
I think her name's Rebecca.
Rebecca. Oh,
Rebecca.
yes,
Yes.
Rebecca. So she was like, I mean, I know Rebecca just by running into her, but she was like, you got to talk to her. And it was like, really? I mean, so I can see that people that recommend you, because nobody likes to be sold something. The barriers go up when you try to sell something.
Yes.
But when you build relationships and somebody else sells it for you, it's like you're not selling it, but that Rebecca was selling you, to me.
Yeah.
And so I might have I don't know about that day, because I don't look deep into some things. I might have walked right by you.
Yeah.
But Rebecca was like, grabbed my attention and pointed and said, oh, yeah. And I think you were talking to somebody else, but I mean, by her telling me that, I took the time to say, well, what do you do? And then you explain and went, holy mackerel, that's crazy. So who are your people that are singing your praise out there? What type of people are complimenting your story?
I would say senior communities have been an amazing advocate for us.
Mm-hmm.
And as we started to build those relationships, I think that's what a lot of people forget, is that everything is relationships,
Mm-hmm.
and everything's trust.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, if you can't trust me, if you can't trust us, like, what are we doing? So building relationships, it's really been the senior communities. It's been adult children, especially the ones who say, after my kids, this was a direct quote, after my kids, after work, I just don't have it. And they love their parents. This has nothing to do with love.
Yeah.
This totally has to do with, oh, I'll call tomorrow. And we know how time flies. I mean, next thing,
Yep.
I feel like we just said Happy New Year.
Yes.
So we know how time flies. And then that day I'm going to call today ends up being a week and a half later. And during that time, of course, you love your parent, but you want to make sure that they're also getting connection. We want to keep people from scammers,
Mm-hmm.
because the reality is right now, you just cannot trust what you see anymore. AI
Yes.
is, I think people are kind of discounting how fast things are going right now, because they are moving so incredibly fast. And the fact that it can influence relationships, it can influence elections. I mean, it has a very far reach.
Mm-hmm.
So I think my influencers are those people who are in senior communities, they're adult children,
Mm-hmm.
they're people in healthcare who have seen the effects. Like even our chief nursing officer, she started as a consultant. And one of the things she said was, I can't believe I didn't think of this, because she's just seen how much either social isolation or loneliness have affected patients of hers.
Yeah, I think when you said about scammers, a thing came up on my LinkedIn profile. It was like $3.2 billion has been identified.
Yep.
That scammers have scammed our senior citizens.
Yeah.
3.2
It's disgusting.
billion. Yeah, it is.
If I could web out and strangle them all, I would.
Yeah. And I'll be right there with you, because a friend of mine called me like 2 Saturdays ago, and he was scammed, his family, $32,000 in like a minute. They emptied out. I mean, they're so good at what they do, and they prey on your fear. They prey on keeping you busy. Like, oh, just do this. I'll get you this money back as quickly as I can.
Exactly.
Before you know it,
it's gone.
It's done. They've emptied out your bank account. So you have to be aware. And I think too, I don't know if this is the case, but if you have a relationship with like the person that's connecting with the senior, mm-hmm. they have that relationship that they build up. Sometimes they feel, hey, my kids are busy. I hear it all the time.
Yeah.
My kids are busy. They're building their career, and they don't want to impose on them.
Yep.
So they have that mentality. Well, I don't want to call my daughter because she's busy. Well, I think, do you find that the connection with your people, your advisors, what do you call them?
We call them buddies.
Buddies. Okay. Mm-hmm. What are you seeing with the buddies and the seniors? Like, what are they developing, like a common connection by getting to know the same person? or you have different people? How does that work?
So there's usually 2 or 3 people, because our whole goal is that, just like you said, as people are getting older, and it can definitely happen when you're younger too, your friend group starts to dwindle a bit. And so our goal is to really give a circle, almost like a friendship circle around that person. So they have 2 or 3 people they can connect with. They know they're having those same conversations. Like, and I make calls myself. So I know when the other buddy that I work with for certain people, you know, Trisha, she backpacked in South America. She learned Spanish doing that. Like, she just has a whole different life than I do. So when we have these conversations, everyone kind of creates their own engagement with the person and their own jokes. And we have one person who speaks a different language. And so she kind of teaches us during. And so I think that's beautiful too, is that a lot of people think, oh, we're serving seniors. No, they're actually serving us too.
Yes.
We learn.
Yes.
And we love learning, and we love coming back and sharing, like, did you know XYZ happened?
Yes.
Because the reality is, we're out of school. We've been out of school for a long time. And, you know, it gives us an opportunity to learn. And I think that the great thing is that it feels so beautiful to just feel connected with someone and learn from them and hear the history. Like, this is way better than any book. Yes. It's just way better than any book to me.
Yeah. You know, you were speaking about learning, and when I was talking to Crystal last night, her business coach said the other day, like, they were engaged in talking about something, and he picked up on something that he learned from her. And so it got to our conversation. It's a circle of learning.
It is.
Like, I learned from you. You learn from others. I mean, it's a constant learning. It's not a one-way street. It's like everybody has such different perspective that if you open your mind, and Crystal does a mindset podcast. So it's like we get in some crazy good conversations about keeping that mind open, keep it open to learning.
It makes all
keep
the difference.
It learning from, even to the point like Leonard Abbott. I'll introduce you to a bunch of people, because these people are doing some amazing things, and they're all learning from each other. And it's like, Leonard Abbott, he's putting younger kids with the senior adults, because that connection, it's kind of like you're learning from the wisdom. You have the youth who's learning, that have the technology down. I mean, they can do so many things because they grew up with it.
Exactly.
You know, at least myself, I'm learning, I'm trying to figure all this stuff out. And, you know, it gets a little overwhelming at times.
Yeah.
And so if a younger person is kind of walking them through an easy way to understand the iPhone or whatever it is, and then that person asks the senior about, hey, so, you know, when you get later in life, what do you like regret? Do you have anything? And you get in these conversations with somebody that has such a perspective of life that's completely different than somebody that's 25 years old.
Exactly.
So what would you say? I'm curious, what fills your heart? What part of the business really just fills that heart? Just share with our viewers that part.
So Pete, don't make me cry. Okay. It's really knowing that we're making a difference. Like, there's one thing to make a difference and do a project or do whatever, but it's another thing to continuously talk to someone and hear their stories and be like, wait a minute, what? And when you talk about kind of like just this generation that's come up and they are in technology, I feel like I'm probably the last generation of like analog. You know, like, we didn't get the phones till college. We didn't grow up with this. And so we're in this mix of, I mean, the other day I was like, man, I want to go back to the 90s.
Yeah.
I just said that the other day. And it's like, you just want a world that's a little slower. That's like, oh, I'm not accessible. And I can't imagine the pressure on these kids and young adults when everything is on the phone. It's right here. It's right now. What are you doing? Why aren't you at this level? Constant compare. I can't imagine it. I think for us, it's easy for us to kind of step back and be like, this wasn't how it always was. Like,
Mhm.
I'm cool, you know? But for me, it's truly making a difference. It's hearing the stories.
Mhm.
It's and it's learning. Like, I'm one of those people. I'm a voracious reader. I love learning. I love traveling and learning about other cultures. I'm that person that if you're in the supermarket, you're probably like, why is this woman talking to me?
Yeah.
But you've done something or I've seen something, maybe you had your name tag on it. And I'm like, Pete, what do? You got your name tag on. Like, I'm going to ask
Yeah.
questions. And that's just always been my nature. And I think too, just thinking of my mother has always been about service, and
Mhm.
that's how I grew up. And I know too much is given. Like, you have to give back, and so
Yes.
I think this is a way for me to have impact and to also thankfully make a living.
Yeah, I mean, that's the wonderful two things. If you can make an impact and make a living, I mean, it's
Yeah,
like crazy good.
yeah,
So you mentioned learning, and you are a ferocious reader. See, I was a slow reader. I grew
mhm,
up dyslexic. So understanding certain things, but my partner kept saying, Peter, using AI, and I got too much on my plate right now to get into a new thing.
yeah,
But then I started taking a book and I'd say, what are the 5 main points
mm,
out of this book? And so then I'd see the 5 points, then I'd do it on audio, then I'd read it.
mhm,
My retention is off the chain because I think
yeah,
my brain is focused on what I want to pull out of it
yeah,
instead of, like, I used to read a page and I go, what the heck did I read?
uh-huh.
Because I wasn't focused on that learning aspect. How are you using AI? What is, I know it gets a positive and a negative,
Mhm.
there's nobody in the middle, it seems like, but how are you using it to enhance what you're doing?
So I would say I definitely feel like I'm in the middle. I'm on the side of, oh my gosh, I can't even imagine. Please don't let the machines take over. I watch too many sci-fi movies.
Mm-hmm.
That's my husband's fault. On the other side of the good, and where I stand in
Yeah.
the middle, is I use it really as I would say a thought, kind of like thought birth. So may have a thought of, hey, I want to do this, but like, how can I start that? And so I it's funny, my husband actually calls me Christian GPT.
Really? Oh my gosh.
Because I
Yeah.
have a lot of prompts, and
Yep.
I'm always putting prompts in and trying to see how can I make the prompts better to get the answers I want
Yes.
back.
Yes.
So I use it. I haven't really used it for like art and images, just because I think when you think about the negative side of AI, I
Yeah.
just artists, that's their soul, that's their
Yeah.
livelihood, and I just want to support artists. And I get making something quickly, but I think that's the part that I just haven't delved into the art part. And I think it'll
Hmm.
be a minute before I do, unless there was a way that attributed something to the artists who are making it and paid them out.
Hmm.
But I definitely use a lot of different AI tools just to um, kind of get a draft of something. And that's the other thing. Please, people, if you're using AI, make sure you humanize your draft. Everything you're doing AI usually sounds like AI. Now, granted, you can customize
Hmm.
and you can create your voice in there, but it still always needs to be edited and
Hmm.
reviewed and edited with your own take on there.
It's funny you say the prompts. He was encouraging me because he's like 100 times smarter than me, and when he gets into things, he goes deep.
Deep.
Yeah, so he'll like keep prompting it, prompting it, prompting it, and prompting it, and coming up with all this
Yeah.
stuff. And I think that first draft is like a first draft,
Yeah.
but you got to dig deep because I love it because when you search on Google, you get all the ads, all the junk, all the
Yeah.
blogs. Some of them are good, some of them aren't. But when you get clean information from Chat GPT, it's clean. It doesn't have all the garbage
Yeah.
out there. And it's really cool to get the answers you want, not what people want to throw in your pathway. So I found it to be very focus driven
Hmm.
in my application of it. And so whenever I hit a problem now, I'll just hit the hit the prompt and just go through it and just dig deep enough. Now I'm about second level. I'm not like deep, but but it really has speeded up my ability to do basic things.
Yeah, even marketing. I mean, like, I
Yes.
use it a lot for marketing, just to help, like, oh, I'm creating this. What's a good, X for lead magnet or whatever it is, to help me just start thinking when I have a block.
Mm-hmm. So what would you say, like, I know I want to be respectful of your time. So tell our viewers, how can they get a hold of you?
So you can reach us at 470-68-HAPPY. That's
Mhm.
470-684-2779. You can also go to happytalks.com. And I am on Instagram at Christian is happy.
Ooh, man, I like it because it's simple.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a previous golfer, and I'd play golf with a person, and I'd say, "Well, what do you do?" And like 10 minutes later, I have no idea what he does. Because he gets into too technical things. It's like,
Yeah.
dang, I can't figure that out. But today we're bombarded by information, so
All
the
the
more
time.
we can make it simple for people, the better. So I want to encourage our viewers right now, because we're on Technology Matters, but I'd love to get you back on our senior living podcast.
Love to.
Because of this, I want people to share this. Some adult children, they're busy. If you know them and you know them well, and you say, look, I got something I want you to be aware of for your mom and dad, because the one thing you don't want to do is like be a well-kept secret, or
Yes.
saying to, I wish I would have known, because your parents aren't going to be calling you saying, hey, why didn't you call yesterday? Now, some of them might, but I mean, most of them won't, because they know you're busy. And so they still need to be connected. They still need to be heard. They still need those relationships that are critical to the quality of life that we want them to have. So what would you say, um, what would be the one thing that you would want our viewers to take home from our time on the podcast?
I would want you to take home that connection truly matters to health. Connection truly impacts health. And if you have noticed that a parent has lost some friends, or maybe they've been a little despondent, or you just notice a change in them, or you just want to make sure that you're adding to the full life that they live. It's not a reactive, it's not a proactive, it's just a life opportunity with us to have social phone calls and to get that report back, and to just kind of like protect your family at the same time, protect their health, protect their mind, and just know that connection's key. And in your own life, make sure that you're maintaining those connections. Check in on those friends, send them a text, pick up the phone, send them a call, send audio messages. I've now been a very big fan of audio messages on my iPhone.
Yeah,
I leave them all the time.
I totally love
because if someone comes to
Yes.
mind, I really want them to know that I'm thinking about them,
Yes.
because they've really come to mind and I'm thinking about them.
I would just want to say something about that. I believe wholeheartedly in the audio message, because it's your voice that they're hearing. And I think it's something that a lot of people on our iPhone, we don't realize that it's there for us to use. And when a loved one can hear your voice, your inflection, your just what you're doing to make it, as opposed to a text, which doesn't have any of that in there.
Yeah.
It's just a different form of communication.
Completely.
So thanks for bringing that up. We appreciate that. So thank you, Christian, for driving up from down in Vinings and being with us, because you know how the traffic is in Atlanta.
Yes.
We own the traffic.
We sure do.
So thank you for taking the time to come up here and be with our viewers.
Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure.